Mike Lieberthal is as much a part of Philadelphia as cheesesteaks and the Liberty Bell. A third overall draft pick in 1990 out of Westlake High School, he made his major league debut on June 30th, 1994. By 1997, he was an everyday player, and just 2 years later, he'd make his first All-Star team and another in the year 2000. After a down year in '01, Lieberthal would earn Comeback Player of the Year honors the next season and would bat .313 in 2003. He would spend 3 more years in the city of brotherly love, and in 2007, his major league career came full circle, finishing where it all began in Southern California as a member of the Los Angeles Dodgers. Back in Philadelphia, he was gone but not forgotten. The Phillies recognized his excellence on August 10, 2012, when they honored him with a spot on their Wall of Fame. Lieberthal caught 1,139 games for the Phillies, a team record that still holds. And now he's going on record to talk about his big league journey here on Touching Base.
Michael.
Mike Lieberthal. Yeah, you got me?
I got you. Clear.
All right, thanks. Thanks so much for doing this. I had some technical stuff I was trying to work the kinks out before, so thanks for your patience on.
Yeah, no problem. It actually worked out perfect timing. It was on the Peloton, made a shake.
Perfect.
Got the Boston Twins game on. Boom.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So everything's got a silver lining. So thanks again for doing this, man. I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy guy, but everybody always knew you as a Phillies All-Star. You were in the big leagues for, I think, 14 seasons. But I want to know what happened, how that came to be. I want you to take me through your journey as a child and how you got into baseball, who got you into baseball. Why don't you tell me about what it was that got you into the sport, and what led through
I kind of
big leagues.
I had a Tiger Woods type dad, very tough dad, and pretty much had to hit 4 hours a day in the cage. He put a batting cage in the backyard, and whether I liked it or not, I had to hit. It was kind of like the first year I played pinto baseball. I was 8 years old, and the coach was like, "Man, your kid is he's got the best arm I've ever seen. He's so accurate." And my dad's like, "Whoa, might have a baseball player here." And then literally, I think I had one hit the whole year. It was a triple. I still remember it. And because I didn't really hit, literally after the season, the next day, he put a batting cage in the backyard, started doing lessons. So I was hitting every day. And then from there, I was pretty much on the All-Star team going forward. And I was an infielder, really. I caught some, but I was an infielder until really my senior year. I was a second baseman my freshman year, shortstop, sophomore, junior year, and then caught my senior year only because I couldn't really run very fast. And my dad did everything for me to be a shortstop, all these track lessons at the local colleges, paying all these lessons to get my 60 time down and all these hill runs. And it just, I got down a little bit, but I think 7 flat 60 was my best time. So he knew that catching was my best position going forward and my best position to be drafted in, really. And that's how it came about as a catcher, really. And then was drafted, obviously, in the first round. 3rd pick overall by the Phillies in 1990.
That's awesome. So it started as one triple, turned into a 3rd overall pick in 1990, and the rest is history. Well, that is awesome. Do you remember where you were when you got the call? And then later on, do you remember where you were when you got the call that you were going to be a part of the big league team?
Yes, I was, at home at my parents' house. So the scouting director was calling my dad back and forth, kind of like, how much money will he accept? Will he accept this amount? If he's, and then I received the call from the scouting director, and a couple scouts came over, I think a few hours later, and signed the contract. I still have pictures in my garage of the photos of how skinny I was signing this contract.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then my major league debut, I was in Rochester, New York. It was right after the game, and they're like, "Yeah, you have a phone call," in the dugout, almost looked like a payphone, and it was Lee Thomas saying how Dalton, I think, broke his collarbone on a ball in between innings, and coming up the next day. So, yeah.
Well, speaking of Dalton, you essentially, God rest his soul, he's no longer with us, but he was a legend in Philly. And you essentially, you kind of took his place. You were the longtime mainstay in Philly behind the plate right after he was, essentially. Were those big shoes to fill, and did you learn a lot from him when you first came up?
Yeah, they were definitely big shoes to fill. I mean, they drafted me because Dalton was having really tough years. I mean, I think in 90 or 89, I think he was hitting 200 and really not producing well. They didn't have any catchers in their farm system, so they had to draft a catcher. And it was me to kind of come up and replace Dalton maybe in 4 years. And then 2 years before I came up is when he kind of really started to blossom and hit. And they made the World Series team in 93. So he became the star. And I remember when I came up to the big leagues, I mean, he had this huge chair, in front of his locker. Everybody else had normal chairs, and it was like, okay, he's the leader. Yeah. And I'm this like little shy kid, like not really saying a word around all these veterans. And he's like, Michael, you're going to take my place. In a couple years, this is going to be your chair. And I'm just like, oh my God, okay.
How do you even process that? Yeah.
Yeah, like he was like the legend in, 93, 94, when I came up. So definitely big shoes to fill.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, you become the main catcher on the team, and then that leads you to your first All-Star appearance in 1999, which I have to say that's probably the most memorable. I'm 37, and that's probably the most memorable All-Star game of my lifetime. I mean, you had the All-Century team there. It was at Fenway Park. Pedro Martinez had his memorable game where he struck out 5 legendary batters. But one of the highlights of the game actually happened before the game, and that was when Ted Williams was wheeled out from the outfield into the center of the diamond. And what was amazing about that is all of you All-Stars who I saw as legends at the time because I was a kid. I saw you guys as these bigger than life entities. Him being in the middle of the diamond and you guys crowding around him as if you guys were waiting to talk to Santa Claus or something, it brought out the kid in all of you. So how special was that moment? And did you ever, because there was such a huge crowd, did you ever make your way to Ted Williams? And were you able to talk to him eventually?
I was kind of on the backside, I was just this first year All-Star. I mean, Ken Griffey Jr., Tony Gwynn were the guys who were kind of talking to him. But Ted Williams was this guy, like, no one hit 400, George Brett was like the closest, when I was a kid. And like Ted Williams was almost like a, animation figure. Like, is this guy for real? Like, 406, everybody talked about. No one's ever going to beat that record. And I mean, for me, it was just like, it was special just kind of relive that on the videos that they showed these days. And I'm like, oh, there I am. Lieberthal, he's in the back, just kind of creeping over, trying to get a look. But that All-Star game was also special because it was a Sosa McGuire, like, home run deal. So, like, I mean, they had batting practice before the game, and there was like 40,000 people watching them crush balls over the fence. As far as fans, for us too, as players, we're just like outside the dugout watching these golf balls fly out of Fenway Park. And that was like crazy too at that moment.
And that's basically, they got their money's worth just watching batting practice, essentially. And, having to knowing that you had to meet Ted Williams and then had to kind of mentally prepare for your first All-Star game, it had to be pretty overwhelming.
No, it was crazy. Pedro Martinez, I think, struck out 5 in a row. Like, the dugout was all like kind of laughs. And then after 5 strikeouts, I think it was like dead silent in the dugout. And it was like, oh God.
How do you come back from that?
Yeah,
exactly. Well, your next year, you make your second All-Star team in the year 2000. You actually get your first hit off of Mariano Rivera in the All-Star game, an infield single. And then the next year, I believe you made I'm going to say it was your movie debut in the 2001 film Summer Catch with Freddie Prinze Jr. and Jessica Biel. Now, his character in the movie, he makes the big leagues at the end of it, and obviously it's a fictional character, but they wanted to put a real life spin on it. They had him face Ken Griffey Jr., who was on the Reds at the time, and you were Freddie Prinze's catcher. Now, my question is, how did that all come to be? Did you have to be present for the movie itself? Or did they kind of just use footage of you from a real life game? How did that all work?
I mean, we were in Cincinnati, and I think it was like the day before, and they're like, Mike, can you catch a couple pitches from Freddie Prinze? It's actually his body double, so it may not be Freddie Prinze, but he'll be out there on the mound, mixing in and out. So I think it was like me and Glanville, like, hey, can you be the outfielder? And Ken Griffey's going to come up. And I was like, sure. I mean, it was like during batting practice time, before batting practice time. So, they had like an hour to kind of get this skit in. I mean, it was really easy. I mean, we met Freddie Prinze, in the dugout, but he didn't have like that big of a part in the movie. It was like a body double throwing to me.
Yeah.
So, and it was like always when the credits come up, like I show my kids, like, hey, I'm in this movie. And I'm like, wait, you got to wait till the credits come up. Here I come.
It's a great bucket list thing and a great thing to tell your kids or whoever. I mean, that's pretty cool that they asked you to do that. Next year, you're the NL Comeback Player of the Year, the Sporting News Comeback Player of the Year in '02. In '03, you had a really great year. You batted .313. But after 13 seasons, 2006, you leave the Phillies. You head home to LA. You're originally from Southern California. Was it a nice way to end your career to have to be able to go back home and finish your major league career there, or did you miss Philly? Would you have preferred to stay in Philly?
I had so many injuries at the time. I was dealing with so many like back spasms. I think I came out of the game in '06, and literally the whole year with the Dodgers, I had like back issues, and I was like hoping to God Russell Martin did not get hurt.
Right.
So I knew like that was like injury wise, it could be my last year because just the way I felt. But to come back home, I mean, I was a Dodger fan my whole life. My dad had season tickets from when I was like 7 years old till probably 13 years old. So I watched all the Say, Lopes, Garvey, Steve Sachs. Yeager was like my favorite player. He was like my, he like lived down the street. So I used to see him all the time. And so I was a huge Dodger fan, and to come home was, pretty cool to play that last year and be at home with friends and family. So, and that's how it was supposed to work.
Yeah, I mean, you ended on a high note, and you ended back where it all started, essentially. So your career with the Phillies was in essence kind of like Don Mattingly's with the Yankees. Don Mattingly came to the team in '82 right after they had won a pennant, and then they had left in '95. His last year was '95, and then they won their next pennant in '96. Yours was bookended by playoff appearances as well. They won the pennant in the Phillies won the pennant in '93. You come up in '94, and then you leave in 2006 to go to the Dodgers, and then the Phillies end up making the playoffs their next time in 2007. So do you look back and say, that's a huge hole in my career, I wish I had made the playoffs? Or are you more of a glass half full kind of guy where
obviously I wish I had the experience in the playoffs, especially now. A lot more teams make the playoffs. When I played for the most of my career, it was like, I think the Braves won like 10 years in a row our division, and
how do you even
everybody else was out.
Exactly.
So we didn't have as many as like 2 or 3 teams that could possibly make the playoffs in each division. So it was a little harder. But yeah, I definitely would have loved to play just like Mike Trout. Like, how was Mike Trout? Like,
or Ernie Banks, or
it's unfortunate, but I was actually happy for a lot of the teammates that I played for. Sure. Chase Utley to get that experience, World Series ring. Ryan Howard, I played with. Shane Victorino. A lot of players. That I played with, even Carlos Ruiz, that I was very happy for, and they got to experience it. So I got to watch it on my couch, and I was fine. But obviously, it would be nice to do it over again and get that experience.
Well, you still have a lot to brag about. And speaking of which, it was enough to earn you a spot on the Phillies Wall of Fame in 2012. And that's a big accomplishment because the Phillies team goes back to the 1800s. It's got a really rich history with a lot of great players. Where were you when you found out that you were going to get the call that you were going to be a Wall of Famer? Because essentially for the Phillies, that's kind of like the Monument Park for the Yankees. And what was your reaction? Were you surprised? Did you expect it?
Yeah, I'm not really sure where I was. I think I was more nervous about the speech I would have to give. And I think I was the anxiety felt really well after the speech was done. But it's always, I go back there every year for alumni weekend. My kids have been back there. It's totally awesome to be like part of that organization forever. I do all the fantasy camps as much as I can. It's just it's like family to me to be back in Philly. The people that work there, there's been so many people that have been there for 18 years old that are still there working there. So it's to me, it's family. And soon enough I'll be working for the Phillies. As soon as I can get my kids through high school. So
perfect.
I'm looking forward to coming back to Philly and hopefully working for them.
So over the last 10 years, you've been more or less a family man since you've gotten inducted into the Wall of Fame.
Oh yeah, 3 boys. Yeah, they're 10, 12, 14. So they definitely run me around. At least they're stuck to one sport now. They used to be basketball, soccer, and baseball. Now they're all baseball. So
Oh, good.
You know,
Good.
it's busy running them around, but it's definitely a great experience.
But the legacy lives on. And speaking of the last 10 years, a lot of rule changes have taken place, and a lot have taken place this year. I want to get your take as a catcher on the pitch clock. I mean, do you think that would make things tougher for you because, you and the pitcher, for example, would have less time to agree on a pitch? Or do you like the idea of a sped up game?
Yeah, because I'm not experiencing it on the field. It's hard to tell, but they had Maldonado, catcher for the Astros, mic'd up
Right.
in the second inning just a few days ago. And he was, as a catcher, he was saying that the 15 seconds is a little too quick with nobody on base. He'd rather have it like at maybe 18 or 20 seconds with runners on base. So he thinks and he plays every day. So that makes sense as a catcher. They're kind of rushed a little bit, getting the signs and everything else. So I think, changes might come a little bit, maybe a few more seconds added to that time. But for a fan, I mean, a lot of my friends that are watching games are like, wow, this is great. It's like games seem like they're going so much faster, and everybody's talking about it. The speed of the game, it's really helped. And the base stealing has been awesome.
Yeah. A lot of
so now
stuff.
They're like trying to incorporate maybe a designated base runner.
I saw that. That reminds me so much of like Legion baseball or Little League. But
so all you got to do is like run a 6'2", 60 time.
Yeah,
you can be a major league player, and just all you have is speed.
That's it, and you'll probably get paid a fortune to do it regardless. So one of the big changes that happened since your retirement that would have affected you probably the most is the fact that you can't barrel into a catcher anymore. I remember back in 2003, actually, I think Adam Dunn barreled into you, and it's got to be like facing an oncoming freight train, seeing Adam Dunn coming at you like that. But do you like the idea that a catcher's safety is taken into account now, or would you have rather had the nitty gritty aspect of the game and still see?
No, of course. I mean, it saves so many injuries. I mean, you have probably, I would say 10 a year. 10 big collisions, good collisions a year. And I mean, what are your odds? Probably 1 out of 10, you're going to like bust your ankle or you're going to be out 15 days.
Right.
Not to mention the concussion. They didn't even have a concussion protocol. I probably had tons of headaches where they're, here's some smelling salts, here's some ammonia water, here's some Advil. There was no like protocol. So you just kind of went with it. Yeah. So now, I mean, you just saw the Dodger catchers out for 7 days for a collision. So it's just definitely for the safety of the game for sure.
Yeah, it is important. It prolongs careers. I totally get it. We get smarter as time goes on, and rules get put into place to protect the players. And it only makes sense.
How fair is that? A guy's running,
Yeah.
Guy's running full speed and can do whatever he wants, and you're just standing there.
And you're standing there focused on the ball, not focused on bracing yourself.
Right.
Yeah. No, forget it.
Everybody used to tell me, like, just relax, and the blow won't be as bad. Just give
easy for them to say.
Okay, that's great. Don't flinch, though. Just give with the blow.
Forget it. But that's really all I got, man. I just want to say thanks again for taking the time, and I wish you nothing but the best. Feel free to stay in touch, and I'll keep you posted.
Feel free to call me again.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for doing this, man. And like I said, we'll stay in touch, and nothing but the best, my friend.
All right. Thanks, Michael.
Take care. Take care, Mike.
All right, man.